أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بجمع. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Before I begin, very quickly, there's a request for the IMI is actually conducting or trying to support the victims of Baghdad bombing, and they're requesting all of your financial support. You can write checks to IMI, pay them directly, or write checks and you can give it to us and we will give it to IMI. Obviously, there's humanitarian need in Baghdad after the bomb blast the other day. More than 200 people were killed in that attack. And so obviously while we condemned and we prayed for the victims, this is another way of praying and taking care of after needs. So this is humanitarian need, it requires international support, and you and I can also play our role in that regards as well. The verse that I recited is from Surah Fath, verses 1 and 2, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Indeed, we have inaugurated for you a clear victory, and Allah may forgive you what is past of your sin and what is to come." When we look at this particular verse of Quran, and there are many such verses in Quran that talk about this concept of Prophet having some sort of sins attached to him. I think there's echo. Can you turn off the echo? There's echo. Can you turn off the echo? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That these ayats of Quran somehow are referring to us as if Prophet committed sins. Because according to this ayah, it says that indeed we gave you, a clear victory so that, we may forgive of your past sins and sins to come. That leads us in a worry as to, is it possible for our Prophet to go ahead and commit sins? And at another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses our Prophet in Surah An'am, verse number 68. When you see those who gossip impiously about our signs, avoid them until they engage in some other discourse. But if shaitan makes you forget, O Prophet, then after remembering, do not sit with these wrongdoing lot. So these two verses are clearly pointing our attention towards the fact that Prophet, na'udhu billah, committed sins, or there were sins that were to his name that Allah is saying that we will forgive. And there were things that Prophet used to forget. It is very easy for our brothers in faith to use these ayat and to prove that Prophet was not infallible. He was a fallible human being like you and I, so he would forget things like you and I. Normally we forget things. And he would also make mistakes, if not grave mistakes, at least he would commit, minor mistakes, and what would be referred to as tarke awla. Here obviously is a rebuttal that we give according to these ayat. These ayat are there, but there are ta'wil of such verses. Doubt which is created over here is that Prophet committed sins before and after this verse was revealed. Allah forgave his sins from the past and in future, an argument which leads to the belief of, again, Prophet being not ma'soom. Fakhr Razi, one of the famous scholars and mufassirin of Ahl Sunnah, he mentions that this verse explicitly talks about forgiving due to the word maghfirat that Allah is using in it. And he says, لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِن ذَنْبِكَ. Yaghfira. The word maghfirat is used. And maghfirat is true when there is been a sin or a mistake for that matter for maghfurun lahu. The person who is, in this case, our Prophet. And so his ismat is mentioned. So the book that he's referring to is Ismatul Anbiya, page 109. Our scholar, Syed Murtada, in regards to this verse says, the word dhanb over here is a little technical discussion that he goes through, but at the end, the fruitful outcome and the conclusion is good. He said the word dhanb over here is used in the root form, masdar. So there are words in Arabic, in your language, which are masdar, which is the root. And then you have the verb form of it, and you have the other forms of that word, which according to Arabic grammar can be genitive, mudaf, towards both the subject and the object. So whenever you use a root word, it could be mudaf, that means idafa. For example, my book, right? So the word book could be, associated to me, or could be associated to the object as well. He said here the word dhanb is genitive towards the object and not towards the subject, Rasulullah. Which means the things which people of Makkah consider sins for him and didn't let him enter into Masjid al-Haram. In Tanzihul Anbiya, he says, it's not associated towards the sins, na'udhu billah, that Prophet had committed. Rather, according to the kuffar of Makkah, there were things that Prophet had done. According to their beliefs, it was a sin. For example, he broke their idols. He broke their idols, right? Their idols were broken by Rasulullah. That's a big sin for him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, after this victory of Fath Mubin that we have given you, and you understand, and we will move forward, that here forgiveness means that we remove those ahkam which were imposed upon you by the mushrikeen. Otherwise, what does it have to do with inna fatahna laka fathan mubina? What does it have to do with this Fath Makkah? Fath Makkah is when Allah says, we have indeed given you a clear victory. What would this have to do with this victory over Makkah if there were sins were being discussed? Says now you are able to enter back into Makkah. So we have, in other words, those imposed upon, sins that people of Makkah thought that you had committed, by which they had expelled you out of Makkah. They would not let you inside Makkah. Now those have been forgiven. Not that we have forgiven you for anything, but those are no longer existing. By this victory that we have granted you, now you are able to come back. So it's not the sins that you have committed. Rather, it was the sins that the people of Makkah thought for themselves, because you broke their idols and you desecrated other things which were sacred to them. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He also adds, Fakhruddin Razi, that dhanb here could also refer to Prophet's sins before Nubuwwat or minor sins. So we're not talking about that Prophet committed sins after he became Nabi, according to them, at the age of 40. So it could be referring to things which he did prior to his nubuwwah. So that's okay as well, according to them, because he doesn't have to be perfect or infallible prior to his nubuwwah. We said no. What does maghfirat has to do with the victory over here? And what could possibly be his previous sins? Can you prove? According to the history that we have read, Prophet was so liked among his community that he was referred to as Amin and Sadiq. Not anyone has ever seen Prophet commit anything wrong, let alone associating a sin with Rasulullah. Fakhruddin Razi at another place says that Tarki Ola is also considered a sin. So that could be the reason why Allah is saying that those tarki awla that you had performed, not a sin, those tarki awla basically literally means preferring the least favorable thing. So for example, you have a task in front of you. There are a couple of ways that you can do it or avoid it. You choose the least preferable way of doing it. That is called tarki awla. That means you did not choose the preferable way. You chose the least preferable way, right? That's called tarki awla. And therefore it says that could be the reason. In regards to Rasulullah, our scholars disprove even tarki awla, that Prophet would not even commit tarki awla. Generally the word zam means disobedience against the command of Mawla, which entails punishment, and maghfirat is lifting the punishment on the disobedience. Both of these words would tarnish the character of Rasulullah, therefore cannot be used for him. Kuffar considered Prophet's acts to be sinful, and they would have never stopped harassing him, and they would have used all means of punishment towards him. With this victory that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given Rasulullah from Hudaybiyah treaty and to conquest of Makkah, it's God's way of stripping Quraysh of their power. In result, the things mushrikeen considered sins, Prophet was secured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And therefore, it is very understandable as to how these were not, because a lot of people use this ayat to say, well, look, you consider Prophet to be sinless. while the ayat of Quran is simply saying the Prophet committed sins or he had these things with him. Our eighth Imam, when he was asked by Mamun, O son of Rasulullah, do you not consider all prophets to be infallible? Then what does this verse of Surah Fath indicate? Imam replied, this was the belief of mushrikeen of Makkah. Prophet called them towards Tawheed and fought with them with their idols, and they considered him to be sinful. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that we have removed the sins that people thought towards you. Second concept was that Prophet would forget things. This would be very easy for them to use it for their own personal agendas. That when you see those who gossip impiously about our signs, avoid them until they engage into other conversation. And if not, but if shaitan makes you forget, O Prophet. So that means Prophet used to forget. Surah An'am, verse number 68. Doubt is created that this verse explicitly mentions that Prophet would forget things, especially in ahkam amali. He would forget. He would be leading salat and he would forget that it was 4 rakat or 3 rakat or whatever. When we are leading, we're so conscious, and the person standing behind us letting us know what their Prophet, it's easy to associate, because some of the other governors and the khulafa of Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas used to do this normally because of various reasons, because the person would be drunk and would go ahead and lead salat, because he is Khalifatul Muslimin. They said, well, if we associate forgetfulness to Prophet, then we can go ahead and easily justify forgetfulness to those khulafa as well. He says, no. Zamakhshari in Kashaf says, if, O Prophet, you were deceived by the shaitan, so that means shaitan can penetrate and deceive Rasulullah in regards to that which is forbidden, and you forget our command, do not sit with such people after you remember. This is in Tafsir Kashaf by Zamakhshari. Qurtubi, another Mufassir, says, this address is in particular to Rasulullah, since forgetfulness is allowed for him. It's not a big deal if Prophet forgets. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a haram or it's not a sinful thing that he would forget. He narrates this from Ibn Arabi, then he narrates a hadith from Sahihain to further prove his point, in which Prophet said, and this is in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, that قَالَ أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ أَنْسَى كَمَا تَنْسَوْنَا فَإِذَا نَسِيتُ فَاذْكُرُونِي. He said, I am a human like yourselves. I forget like you forget. Thus remind me when I forget something. So there's possibility that Prophet would forget things. This is in Sahih Bukhari, Kitab al-Salat. Qurtubi then adds that those who say this is an address to Rasulullah, but in reality a hukm for his ummah, trying to run away from associating forgetfulness with Prophet. Fakhr Razi over here comes clear, although he's also a scholar of Ahl Sunnah, but he here defends Rasulullah by saying, no, you cannot associate forgetfulness to Rasulullah. This is not an address directly to Rasulullah. We must assume something in this sentence because it is being addressed to us as human beings, that we come across and we are sitting amongst people who might be denouncing our religion and who might be contradicting the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you see a certain situation, either try to change the conversation and influence them. If you cannot, then get up and leave from there. Because shaitan might trick you into sitting and going and indulging into such conversation. He said there must be something mahzoof from this ayat of Quran. Mahzoof in a sense that it is understood. What do I mean by that? Quran is complete. There's nothing missing in it. No, not from that aspect. If I was to ask you, what time is Salat? You can say 8:45. Or you can say Salat is at 8:45. Both of the answers are correct. Once you say 8:45, what was omitted? The whole sentence. The Salat is at 8:45. So you just gave me the answer. Both of them are acceptable. One was a complete answer. One was just the answer which was indicating the time. So in the first answer, when you just gave me 8:45, there was a sentence which was omitted. He said the similar thing is over here, which is understood. That the ayat is saying, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ أَيُّهَا الصَّامِ الَّذِينَ يَخُوضُونَ فِي آيَاتِنَا. Oh, when you see, oh listener, those who gossip impiously about our signs, then you go ahead and do it. So it's not addressing Rasulullah that shaitan will penetrate and misguide you. Rather, those who you see doing this, they are the ones who are misguided by shaitan. Under the part yansiyannaka shaitan, he writes, yufidu adna taklif saqitun ananas. People would not be held accountable for forgotten actions. From this word, we can understand that he's trying to associate forgetfulness to the ummah and not to our Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Although this address is to Rasulullah, because Quran is revealed to Rasulullah, but it clearly shows that the educational nature for the people, the address in general and not in particular. Because historically speaking, Prophet would never sit with such individuals who would be mocking the religion, and Prophet would not be able to change the conversation with him. With all the dalail and the proofs that he possesses, would he not have the ability to change the conversation? Would he not be able to get up and leave? So it is absurd to associate that Prophet would be mingling and sitting with such people, which is historically not proven, those who used to gossip. And here we'll mention a hadith which proves that Prophet never sat with such individuals, because he himself said, man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir fala yajlis fi majlisin yusabbu fihi imamun or yakhtabu fihi muslim. He himself is saying this, and then he would go ahead and sit in such majalis. He said, whoever believes in Allah and Qiyamah shouldn't sit in a gathering in which one is cursing in front of you, cursing the imam, or is doing backbiting, ghibat of another Muslim. So when Prophet himself is telling us not to do something, why would he himself be sitting in such a gathering? So both of these claims, in which first one was saying the Prophet committed sins, na'udhu billah, is nullified, it is made batil, and second claim that Prophet used to forget things is also made batil. Similar is the case when we read, for example, these du'as that we have received from Masumeen. We believe that our Masumeen are infallible. They do not commit sins. The concept of infallibility is that they do not commit sins. But unfortunately, it's very difficult for our brothers to understand this concept. They think only Allah is Masum. Everyone else, can make mistakes. That includes prophets, and that includes, obviously, the imams. The question is that I can prove to you that even us human beings are infallible to an extent. Because you and I have kept ourselves away from many sins. For example, killing is a major sin, right? Not only that we have never done it, inshallah, we haven't even thought about doing it, right? Adultery is a major sin. Not that we haven't done it, we don't even think about doing it. Suicide is a major sin. We haven't done it, nor do we think about doing it. And go on and on and on. I can list 1,000 other things that you and I have never been part of. So from that aspect, you and I are also partially infallible. You and I are partially masoom, that we haven't committed many of these sins. Yeah, we have committed many other sins, but that's why I'm saying we're partially masoom. When you and I can see ourselves to be partially masoom, then how difficult it is for us to see Rasulullah to be completely masoom. How it is difficult for us to see those who are close to Rasulullah, such as imams and masumeen, how would it be difficult for us to see them not commit any sins? It's very easy. From this aspect, we can understand. Similarly, then where are you going to go? When you read, for example, Dua Kumail, in which Imam al-Mu'mineen, Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, is saying what? He says, Allahumma aghfir li ad-dunub allati tahbisu ad-du'a. Allahumma aghfir li ad-dunub allati tunzilu al-bala. Oh Allah, forgive my sins that bring your azab. What sins, Imam? You're masoom. Oh Allah, forgive my khatayat. Akhta'tuha. كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطية أخطأتها. Oh Allah, forgive all the sins that I have committed and all the mistakes that I have made. Oh Imam, you're masoom, infallible. What does it mean that you're saying that all the mistakes that you have committed, all the sins that you have made? Definitely, this is where the concept of teaching is being done. It's an educational process for you and I, that when we read these du'as, when we make du'a, this is how we make du'a, because we are sinful people, and we make du'a by using these words of Masumeen alayhimu salatu wassalam. There's no way that Amirul Mu'mineen would be saying in regards to his own personal actions. So it's absurd to associate any of such things to Imam Amirul Mu'mineen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There were a couple other such topics that I wanted to discuss, but I won't have time, so I'll discuss one smaller topic, and inshallah the next few, one of them which includes the marriage and the marriages of Rasulullah and so on and so forth, and the reasons behind it, which a lot of time, not just Muslimin, but even non-Muslims obviously, go ahead and raise an issue in regards to tarnishing the character of Rasulullah as to he married, for example, a 9-year-old, and how many marriages that took place in his life. Another thing is that why didn't Prophet eradicate slavery? That slavery, which is the concept which is denounced by Islam, a concept which is denounced by Aql, why is it that when Islam came, when Prophet had the opportunity, why didn't he go ahead and eradicate it? First, slavery was a common practice back then. We mentioned before as well, whenever the ahkamat were being implemented, it wasn't that they were implemented all at once. Rather, it was a gradual process of all of these wajibat and the muharramat to take place. It wasn't that the first year Prophet started propagating, namaz, roza, hajj, zakat, khums, amr ma'ruf, all of these things became wajib. No. They all gradually, at different time and periods and phases, became wajib. So it'd be easy for the newcomers to go ahead and easily adopt and go ahead and perform these wajibat. Similarly, not everything became haram right away. So that, for example, drinking alcohol did not become haram right away. That's why you read ayahs such as La taqrabu salat wa antum sukara. Do not approach the salat while you are intoxicated. From the looks of this ayah, nobody can say that alcohol is forbidden from this ayat, right? Because all this ayat is saying, don't approach the salat while you're intoxicated. That means you can be intoxicated. You just don't pray at that time. You go ahead and pray at another time when you are not intoxicated. So this ayat was revealed in the earlier days when it was a rivaj, it was a common practice from the people of Makkah. They used to drink. They used to drink alcohol. So if Islam would have come and banned it right away, they would have all been very difficult for them to leave it, right? And they would have turned into rebellion and they would not have embraced the religion. But the idea was slowly and gradually implemented by telling them, when you pray, you can't combine alcohol with the prayer. So you got to stop this habit slowly and gradually. They started doing this. He said, we want to be able to pray. But ayat says you can't pray while you're intoxicated. So they stopped drinking and they started making this a habit. When they had complete control over it, the ayat of Quran comes, says, in al-khamara wal-maysira wal-azlam wal-ansab min amal al-shaytan fashtanibu. All of these things, alcohol amongst them, gambling and so on and so forth, they are actions of shaitan. Stay away from these things. See the difference between the two ayat? First ayat is just giving you recommendation. Second ayat is completely making it forbidden. But it was a gradual process by which people learned. So ahkamat did not become wajib all at once. Similarly, muharramat did not become haram all at once. It was a gradual process. Similarly, slavery was something which was a common practice at that time in Mecca. Options for war captives, what are the options? That when people are made captives of war, what should the Prophet do? Should he, let them loose? No, if he lets them loose, they'll attack Islam, Muslimin. If they go ahead and put them into, confinement, into solitary confinement or into jails and prisons, which did not exist at that time, Islam is not as strong at that time to go ahead and be able to provide for these captives of war. They don't have that for themselves, let alone to provide for the captives of war. What was the final solution? Each of these captives of war, all of you, Muslimin, take one person with you to your home. You feed him, you take care of him, and in return, you use him for your needs. For example, he'll serve you as a slave in your house. But then every time you break a fast, you go ahead and free a slave. Every time you break an oath, you go ahead and free a slave. Every time you commit some act of like this, go ahead and free a slave. For example, by mistake you kill someone, ayat of Quran, وَمَنْ كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنَ أَنْ يُقْتُلَ مُؤْمِنًا إِلَّا خَطَأً وَمَنْ قَتَلَ مُؤْمِنًا فَتَحْرِيرُ رَقَبَةٍ. You go ahead and free a slave. So every time there was a kafara, today a lot of people say, why do we have the kafara of freeing the slave? No, this was a kafara at that time when slavery was a common practice to come and abolish the slavery. This act was implemented as the first kafara for breaking the fast. And there were many other reasons. For example, those who renounced their wives by calling them mothers, also fatahriru raqabatin. So there were many ways by which you would be responsible for freeing a slave. So Islam, by giving this option, was eradicating slavery. Prophet was eradicating slavery and putting an end to it, but in a gradual and systematic way. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us a tawfiq that we're able to look into the life of Rasulullah, and to be able to defend those claims which are made against our Prophet. Wa akhiru da'wana, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.